Speaking of lying, let's talk a little bit about Mike Johnson, the House Speaker. And he is asked by Jake Tapper on CNN if he thinks it's acceptable for a president to instruct his attorney general to prosecute political opponents, because we know that's exactly what Donald Trump is doing. Have a listen to this exchange between Jake Tapper and Mike Johnson, lying, continues to preach about God and Christianity, but lying to the American people because he knows what Donald Trump is doing is inappropriate. Have a listen to this exchange.
Just looking at the principle at stake here, if you can remove Comey and Trump out of the equation, as a constitutional attorney and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, do you believe it's acceptable for any president to publicly or privately instruct their attorney general to prosecute a political opponent and go as far as firing a U.S. attorney if they don't bring charges because they don't think the case is strong enough?
I'm glad you brought up the principle. That is exactly what's at issue here. James Comey lied to Congress. Okay, he took an oath. He said things to Congress that were simply not true. It's called perjury. A grand jury that is not, a nonpartisan, non-biased grand jury that was assembled looked at the charges and they agreed, they voted to bring an indictment of James Comey. Not President Trump, not the DOJ, but a grand jury. That's how our system works. It's a very important principle for us to apply, that everybody has to subscribe to the law, even a former FBI director. And he has lots to answer for. There are many things that he could have been indicted for, but the statute of limitations ran out on so many of those matters. Not here. Perjury is important. You can't, especially if you're a high official, appointed or elected official, you cannot raise your hand, take an oath, and lie to Congress. And that's an important principle, Jake, for us to advance.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but you didn't answer the part about President Trump putting it all out there for everyone to see on Truth Social after pushing out the U.S. attorney, this conservative Eric Siebert. He wrote to Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, nothing's being done about Comey, Schiff, and Letitia James, even though they're all, quote, guilty as hell. The president demanded justice must be served now. He mentioned Lindsay Halligan, who is now the acting U.S. attorney. And Bondi clearly got the message. She appointed Halligan U.S. attorney, despite the fact she has no prosecutorial experience. A few days later, Halligan indicted Comey. I mean, this looks like it was directed by the president. As you know, indictments are not convictions. Indictments have to do with a grand jury saying whether or not a case can be brought. It's not a finding of guilt. The defense isn't even allowed to present a case there. Don't you have any qualms about any president telling an attorney general, go after these three political opponents?
I would take issue with that. I don't think that's what he did. But what I have qualms with, Jake, is the total and utter weaponization of the Department of Justice. And Comey was a primary person responsible for that.
Okay, so let me get this straight, Mike Johnson. When a grand jury indicts Donald Trump, you claim that it's Joe Biden weaponizing the justice system. We heard this over and over again from Donald Trump and all these MAGA morons. Despite that, we know Joe Biden said nothing about it and he had nothing to do with it. No evidence to the contrary. But that's Joe Biden weaponizing the justice system. But when Trump demands indictments and gets his personal lawyer involved to get one after his first MAGA appointee refused, apparently that's how our system works. Ladies and gentlemen, do you see the double standard and do you see the hypocrisy? It is a joke. And Mike Johnson is full of crap and just another person who calls himself a wholesome Christian, right? A man of God who, again, lying to the American people every day. He and Caroline Leavitt, as far as I'm concerned, can go to hell.